Our marriage ends today. Nathaniel Blackwood's voice crossed the throne hall so quietly that no one dared disturb the silence afterward. Beneath towering stone arches and hundreds of burning candles, the vampire king stood before his royal council dressed entirely in black, his unnaturally pale face unreadable as he slowly removed the silver wedding ring from his finger. 20 feet away, Emma Carter remained perfectly still. She had known this moment might come. She simply had not expected him to make it public. Every council member watched the human queen, waiting for tears, anger, perhaps a desperate plea to remain beside the most powerful vampire in the kingdom. Emma gave them none of those things. Her white hands rested calmly at her sides, though her heartbeat felt painfully loud inside her chest. Nathaniel placed the ring on the long council table. The faint metallic click echoed through the chamber. "You are released from every obligation attached to my name," he said. "At sunrise, arrangements will be made for you to leave Blackwood Castle." Emma looked into the face she had spent 6 months learning to read. To everyone else, Nathaniel appeared cold, untouchable, a king delivering judgment. Emma saw something different in his dark eyes. "Hurt? Is that what you want?" she asked. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "What I want is no longer relevant." "Convenient." Several council members exchanged startled glances. People did not usually speak to Nathaniel Blackwood that way. Emma always had. "Emma," he warned softly. "No." She took one step forward. "If you intend to end our marriage in front of everyone, then at least look at me while you do it." Nathaniel's eyes locked onto hers. The room seemed to shrink around them. "I trusted you," he said. Emma felt the accusation more deeply than anger could have reached. 3 sealed letters lay on the table beside her husband's ring. Letters written in a code belonging to people Nathaniel considered enemies. Letters carrying Emma's handwriting. Evidence convincing enough to turn affection into suspicion overnight. "And now," she asked, "now I know you were communicating with them from inside my home." "Our home." Nathaniel went still. Emma's voice remained steady. "For 6 months, you called it our home. Do not make this harder." "I'm not." She glanced around the chamber. "You already decided what the letters mean without asking why they exist." One councilman shifted uncomfortably. Nathaniel noticed, but his attention returned immediately to Emma. "You had opportunities to explain." "No, Nathaniel. I had opportunities to confess to something you had already decided was betrayal." Silence again. Emma approached the table and removed her own wedding ring. For the first time, Nathaniel's composure cracked. Barely. His eyes dropped to her hand. Emma placed her ring beside his. 2 silver circles rested beneath the candlelight, close enough to touch. "If this is truly your decision," she whispered, "I won't beg you to change it." Something painful moved across Nathaniel's pale face. He had expected denial, perhaps anger. He had not expected dignity. "You will leave at sunrise," he repeated, though the words sounded less certain now. Emma nodded. "I will." She turned toward the enormous doors, then stopped. The council watched her. Nathaniel did too. Emma looked back over her shoulder, her eyes shining but steady. "But before I leave, ask yourself one question." Nathaniel said nothing. "If I came here to betray you, why did I betray the only people who could have taken me home?" The room went completely still. Nathaniel's expression changed. Emma continued before he could speak. "There's a 4th letter." His eyes narrowed. "What 4th letter?" "The one you never found." For the first time that evening, uncertainty entered the vampire king's face. Emma looked once at the 2 rings on the table. "Read it before sunrise." Then she walked away. 6 months earlier, Emma Carter had entered Blackwood Castle believing she was marrying a monster she could never love. Nathaniel had stood at the end of a candlelit hall, pale as winter beneath his black ceremonial coat, and offered her the coldest promise a new bride could receive. "You will have my protection, Mrs. Blackwood," he had told her, "but do not expect my heart." Emma had looked directly into the vampire king's eyes and answered, "That makes 2 of us." Neither of them understood it then, but their marriage had already begun with the first thing neither expected from the other: the truth. 6 months earlier, Blackwood Castle felt less like a home to Emma Carter than a beautiful place designed to remind her she did not belong. Its stone corridors stretched beneath vaulted ceilings, silver candle holders illuminated portraits of unsmiling rulers, and servants lowered their voices whenever Nathaniel Blackwood approached. Emma noticed something else during her first week. Nobody laughed around him. Nobody disagreed with him. Nobody asked whether he was tired when he returned from council meetings long after midnight. They saw a vampire king first and a man only when necessary. Nathaniel seemed perfectly comfortable with that arrangement. He gave Emma private rooms overlooking the eastern gardens, access to the library, a household allowance she barely touched, and complete freedom to move throughout the castle except during confidential council sessions. He was courteous without being warm, protective without becoming familiar. At dinner, he sat across from her at a table built for 20 people, making the distance between them almost absurd. On their fourth evening, Emma finally set down her fork. "Do we really need this table?" Nathaniel looked up. His unusually pale face remained expressionless beneath the candlelight. "It has belonged to my family for 3 centuries. That did not answer my question." His eyes narrowed slightly. "What would you prefer? A table where I do not need binoculars to know whether you enjoyed dinner." Nathaniel stared at her. Emma wondered if she had finally discovered the limit of his patience. Then he glanced at the enormous distance separating them. "That is reasonable." The next evening, dinner was served at a smaller table beside the library fireplace. Emma tried not to look surprised. Nathaniel noticed anyway. "You asked. Kings usually hear requests differently." "How?" "As inconveniences." Something unreadable crossed his face. "You have known many kings. One has been enough." The corner of his mouth almost moved. Almost. That became their strange rhythm. Emma discovered Nathaniel preferred books to royal celebrations, hated overly sweet desserts, and sometimes stood alone on the western balcony when the castle became too quiet. Nathaniel discovered Emma refused to let servants unpack her personal belongings, remembered every employee's name, and had an irritating habit of asking questions everyone else was too intimidated to ask. One night, she found him in the library surrounded by council documents. "You have been working since breakfast. Were you monitoring me?" "You skipped dinner." "I was busy." Emma placed a covered plate on the desk. "Then be busy while eating." Nathaniel looked at the plate, then at her. "Are you ordering me to have dinner?" "I would never disrespect the crown that way." "You sound remarkably disrespectful." "Eat your soup." Nathaniel obeyed. Emma left before she could see him smile. Weeks passed, and something subtle changed inside Blackwood Castle. Nathaniel began returning for dinner instead of having meals brought to his office. Emma started leaving books on his desk with notes explaining why his opinions about them were wrong. He returned them with equally stubborn notes in the margins. Their marriage remained untouched by romance, but the silence between them no longer felt empty. Then came the winter council reception. Emma stood near the fireplace while visiting nobles carefully avoided Nathaniel's gaze. A young attendant stumbled over an introduction and immediately apologized. Nathaniel simply said, "Take your time." The boy relaxed. Emma watched from across the room. That small kindness unsettled her more than his reputation ever had. Later, she found Nathaniel alone beside a tall window. Snow covered the grounds beyond the glass. "You surprised me tonight," she said. "That sounds dangerous." The attendant. Nathaniel understood. He was nervous. "Most people are nervous around you. You are not." Emma considered that. "I was." Nathaniel turned toward her. "When did that change?" She looked at his pale face, the controlled posture, the loneliness hidden beneath centuries of expectation. "I am not sure." For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Nathaniel asked quietly, "Do you regret marrying me?" Emma could have given him the safe answer. Instead, she gave him the truth. "Not today." Something softened in his eyes. "I suppose that is progress. Do not become optimistic." Emma walked away smiling. Nathaniel watched her disappear beyond the library doors, suddenly aware of a dangerous possibility. The human woman he had promised never to love was becoming the only person in the castle whose footsteps he had begun listening for. By the end of the second month, Emma Carter had learned that Nathaniel Blackwood was easiest to understand when he believed nobody was watching. The vampire king everyone feared was different in unguarded moments. He stopped to straighten paintings servants had accidentally tilted. He remembered which stable worker had a daughter recovering from illness. He left books outside Emma's room without admitting he had chosen them specifically for her. And every Thursday evening, he disappeared into the oldest wing of the castle for exactly 1 hour. Emma lasted 3 Thursdays before curiosity defeated manners. On the 4th, she followed the sound of a piano through a corridor she had never explored. Nathaniel sat alone in a candlelit music room, his pale hands moving slowly across the keys. He stopped the instant he noticed her. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough to discover the terrifying Vampire King plays beautifully." Nathaniel closed the piano. "This room is private." Emma immediately stepped backward. "Then I apologize." His expression changed. He had expected an argument. "You are leaving? You said it was private." She turned. "Emma." She stopped. Nathaniel looked at the empty chair beside the piano. "You can stay." She smiled faintly and returned, but she did not ask him to continue. After a moment, he opened the piano again himself. That evening became another quiet ritual. Emma never entered unless invited, and Nathaniel gradually stopped pretending he did not wait for her. Some nights he played. Other nights they simply talked. He told her his mother had taught him music before royal responsibility consumed nearly every part of his life. Emma told him about growing up in a small white house where her father repaired clocks at the kitchen table and her mother believed every disagreement could be solved with pie. Was she correct? Nathaniel asked. More often than she deserved to be. He almost smiled. Emma began seeing the man beneath the crown, and Nathaniel began discovering something equally unfamiliar. Emma wanted nothing from him. When he offered to replace the modest necklace she always wore, she refused. When he suggested giving her a larger suite, she asked why anyone needed 6 additional rooms. When a carriage merchant delivered an extravagant gift in her name, she sent it back before Nathaniel even heard about it. Most people enjoy gifts, he told her later. I enjoy gifts. You returned the carriage. That was not a gift. That was a building with wheels. Nathaniel actually laughed. The sound surprised both of them. Emma stared. You can do that. His face immediately returned to its usual composure. Apparently not. Too late. I heard it. From then on, something changed. Nathaniel began seeking her company without inventing reasons. He joined her walks through the winter garden. She sat in the library while he worked. They argued about books, politics, and whether his castle desperately needed brighter curtains. But Emma never forgot the difference between them. Nathaniel could enter a room and silence 50 people without speaking. She was a human woman whose place beside him existed because of a political agreement. That difference became impossible to ignore during a council gathering in early spring. Emma entered quietly and heard Lord Whitmore questioning whether a human queen should be permitted to attend future diplomatic meetings. She has no understanding of our traditions, Whitmore said. Nathaniel's expression became cold. Before he could answer, Emma stepped forward. Then perhaps someone should explain them instead of using tradition as an excuse to exclude me. Every face turned toward her. Whitmore looked stunned. Nathaniel said nothing. Emma continued calmly. I did not ask to enter this marriage, but I entered it honestly. If I am expected to carry the responsibilities of this position, then I will not be treated as decoration when decisions are made. The room fell silent. Nathaniel watched her with an expression she had never seen before. Not protection. Respect. Whitmore began to object, but Nathaniel raised one hand. My wife has spoken. Emma looked at him. He did not speak for her. He simply made sure nobody erased what she had already said. Hours later, Nathaniel found her in the winter garden beneath a ceiling of moonlit glass. You surprised the council. They will recover. Whitmore may require several weeks. Emma smiled. Nathaniel stopped beside her. You could have remained silent. So could you. I am the king. Exactly. Everyone already listens to you. Her expression softened. Sometimes the person who needs someone standing beside them is the one everyone assumes stands alone by choice. Nathaniel became perfectly still. For years, people had offered him loyalty because of his crown, obedience because of his authority, and politeness because of fear. Emma had just offered something else. Understanding. Their eyes met beneath the moonlight, and neither looked away. The distance between them had once felt permanent. Now it felt dangerously small. The council meeting should have ended the moment Emma Carter walked away, but Nathaniel Blackwood remained seated long after the chamber emptied. Her words followed him through the silence. Sometimes the person who needs someone standing beside them is the one everyone assumes stands alone by choice. No one had ever described his life so accurately. For generations, the Blackwood crown had taught its rulers that loneliness was simply another name for strength. Nathaniel had believed it because believing otherwise required admitting how much the silence cost him. Emma had noticed in 3 months what others had ignored for decades. After that night, their marriage changed in ways neither announced. Nathaniel began asking for Emma's opinion before council meetings. Emma stopped pretending she did not wait for him at dinner. On Thursday evenings, she joined him in the music room, sometimes bringing 2 cups of tea and a book she rarely opened. One evening, Nathaniel stopped playing halfway through a song. "You are not reading." Emma looked down at the same page she had been holding for 20 minutes. "It is a complicated chapter. You are holding the book upside down." Emma examined it and sighed. "That explains a great deal." Nathaniel laughed softly. Emma smiled, but neither immediately looked away. Something had changed between them, something warmer than friendship and far more frightening than obligation. Nathaniel closed the piano. "Emma, when this marriage was arranged, I told you not to expect my heart." Her smile faded. "I remember. I may have spoken too confidently." The room became impossibly quiet. Emma's fingers tightened around the book. "Nathaniel." A knock interrupted them. Lord Whitmore entered carrying a sealed document. His eyes moved briefly between them before settling on Nathaniel. "Your Majesty, the Northern delegation has threatened to withdraw from next month's negotiations unless the Queen is excluded." Emma stood. Nathaniel's expression hardened. "On what grounds?" "They consider her human background a conflict." Nathaniel reached for the document. Emma stopped him. "Let me read it." Whitmore hesitated before handing it over. Emma read every line. "They are not objecting to me," she said. "They are testing you." Whitmore frowned. "Explain." "If Nathaniel removes me because they demand it, they learn that enough pressure can decide who stands beside the king." Nathaniel studied her. "And what would you recommend?" "Invite them anyway." Whitmore stared at her. "After this insult?" "Especially after it." Emma placed the document on the piano. "If they come, negotiations continue. If they refuse, everyone knows they abandoned the table because a woman was sitting at it." Nathaniel's pale face remained unreadable for several seconds. Then he looked at Whitmore. "Send the invitation." Whitmore bowed reluctantly and left. Nathaniel turned to Emma. "You protected my position. I protected the negotiations. You could have protected yourself by agreeing to stay away." Emma met his eyes. "I am tired of everyone assuming those are different things." That answer stayed with Nathaniel. The Northern delegation arrived 2 weeks later. Emma sat beside him throughout the meeting, speaking only when necessary, but when a dispute over trade routes stalled the room, she suggested a compromise neither side had considered. By sunset, an agreement had been reached. That evening, Nathaniel found Emma on the western balcony. Spring rain shimmered beyond the stone railing. "They respected you today," he said. "Some of them tolerated me very professionally. For this council, that is nearly affection." Emma smiled. Nathaniel stepped beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying when remaining silent would have been easier." Emma looked toward him. "Maybe I stopped staying because of the agreement." Nathaniel became still. Their eyes met. Emma could see the question he was afraid to ask. She was afraid to answer it. "Good night, Nathaniel," she whispered. She walked inside before courage could become confession. Nathaniel remained beneath the covered balcony, watching the rain. For the first time, the vampire king understood that losing his political wife would hurt for reasons politics could never explain. Neither of them noticed Lord Whitmore standing at the far end of the corridor with a sealed envelope in his hand. 3 days later, Nathaniel would find the first letter hidden among Emma's belongings, written in her handwriting and addressed to the very people who had once promised to take her away from Blackwood Castle. 3 days later, Nathaniel Blackwood found the first letter before breakfast. It rested on his desk inside a plain envelope bearing no royal seal, delivered with a short note claiming it had been discovered among Emma Carter's personal papers. Nathaniel recognized her handwriting immediately. He read the letter once, then again. By the third reading, the words had stopped looking like sentences and begun feeling like questions he did not want answered. The message was addressed to someone outside Blackwood territory. It described changes in council schedules, mentioned the northern negotiations, and ended with a sentence that turned his pale expression colder than usual. "Everything is proceeding as expected." Nathaniel summoned Lord Whitmore. "Who found this?" "A household attendant." "Which one?" Whitmore hesitated. The attendant requested discretion. Nathaniel lifted his eyes. "People requesting discretion while accusing my wife should expect questions." Whitmore lowered his gaze. Of course, Nathaniel should have gone directly to Emma. Instead, doubt did what doubt always did best. It found old wounds and gave them new names. For years, alliances around Nathaniel had been built on usefulness. People praised him when they needed influence, obeyed him when they feared consequences, and offered friendship when proximity to the crown benefited them. Emma had seemed different. That was precisely why the letter hurt. Later that morning, he found her in the library reading beside the fireplace. She smiled when he entered. "You missed breakfast." "I was occupied." Something in his tone made her close the book. "What happened?" Nathaniel nearly showed her the letter. Nearly asked the simplest question in the world. "Is this yours?" But fear disguised itself as caution. "Nothing." Emma studied him. "You are terrible at saying nothing when something is clearly wrong." "I have a council meeting." He turned away before her concern could weaken his suspicion. 2 more letters appeared over the following days. The second referenced the Eastern Gate schedule. The third mentioned Nathaniel's diplomatic plans. Each carried Emma's handwriting. Each appeared to confirm the last. Yet something troubled him. None contained enough information to cause actual damage. They were incriminating without being useful. Nathaniel noticed the contradiction, but emotion was louder than reason. Emma noticed something too. He stopped visiting the music room. Dinner returned to silence. The distance between their chairs seemed to grow even though the table had not moved. On Thursday evening, Emma finally found him alone in the council chamber. "Have I done something?" Nathaniel looked at her. "Would you tell me if you had?" Her face changed. "What does that mean?" "Exactly what I asked." Emma stepped closer. "Then ask what you actually want to know." For one dangerous second, Nathaniel almost did. Instead, he said, "Have you contacted anyone from your former household since our marriage?" Emma became very still. "Yes." The answer landed harder than denial would have. "How often?" "Several times." "And you never thought to mention it?" "There are many things you never thought to ask." Nathaniel's expression closed. Emma saw it happen. "You already believe something," she whispered. "I believe there are questions." "Then ask them." "I just did." "No. You are questioning me without telling me why." Nathaniel looked away. Emma waited, but he offered nothing more. Hurt replaced confusion in her eyes. "When you decide whether I am your wife or a suspect, you know where to find me." She left him alone. That night, Nathaniel opened the drawer containing the 3 letters and stared at them beneath the candlelight. He remembered Emma standing beside him before the council. Emma bringing him dinner. Emma telling him she might no longer be staying because of an agreement. Every memory now had 2 possible meanings, and Nathaniel chose the one that frightened him most. The following morning, he ordered a formal council session for sunset. He told himself he was protecting the crown. He told himself releasing Emma from the marriage was kinder than condemning her without undeniable proof. He told himself many things except the truth. He was terrified that if he asked Emma directly and she admitted betraying him, he would discover that the heart he once promised never to give her was already hers. As sunset painted the castle windows crimson and gold, Nathaniel placed his wedding ring beside the 3 letters and waited for the council doors to open. The council doors opened at sunset, and Emma Carter entered knowing something had already been decided without her. Nathaniel Blackwood stood at the far end of the chamber beneath the carved crest of his family, his pale face controlled, his dark eyes fixed on her as council members took their places around the long table. 3 letters rested beside his hand. Emma recognized them immediately. That recognition was all Nathaniel needed to see. "They are yours," he said. Emma stopped several feet away. "Yes." A murmur moved through the chamber. Lord Whitmore leaned forward, but Nathaniel silenced the room with a glance. "You admit writing them?" "I wrote every word." Nathaniel's expression tightened. "Then there is nothing left to discuss." Emma looked at the letters, then at him. "There is everything left to discuss." Nathaniel slowly removed his wedding ring. Emma watched his fingers place it beside the evidence. The quiet metallic sound seemed louder than the whispers around them. He released her from every obligation attached to the Blackwood name and told her arrangements would be made for her departure at sunrise. Emma listened without interrupting. When he finished, she asked whether that was truly what he wanted. Nathaniel answered that what he wanted was no longer relevant. The words hurt because Emma finally understood what he was hiding behind them. This was not indifference. It was fear wearing the clothing of judgment. "You never asked me why I wrote them," she said. "You admitted they were yours." "Those are not the same thing." Nathaniel's gaze hardened. They contain information about this castle. Read carefully. They contain information that sounds important. Several council members exchanged uncertain looks. Nathaniel glanced down at the letters. Emma continued. The Eastern Gate schedule in the second letter was changed 2 days before I sent it. The diplomatic meeting mentioned in the third had already been moved. Nathaniel looked up sharply. How do you know when they were sent? Because I sent them. To people working against this kingdom. Yes. Whitmore rose. Your Majesty, surely that admission is enough. Emma turned toward him. Interesting that you are so eager for this conversation to end. Whitmore's face tightened. Nathaniel noticed. Sit down, he said. Whitmore obeyed. Emma looked back at her husband. I gave them information they expected to receive because silence would have told them I was no longer cooperating. Nathaniel stared at her. Cooperating with what? Emma reached for her wedding ring. Her fingers trembled once before she removed it. Before I came here, certain people promised my family protection if I entered this marriage and reported what I learned. The chamber went silent. So you were sent here to observe me, Nathaniel said. At first, pain crossed his face before he could hide it. Emma placed her ring beside his. That is the part you were right about. Nathaniel looked at the 2 rings. And the part one was wrong about. You assumed I never changed my mind. Emma's voice softened. I stopped giving them real information weeks ago. Why? She looked directly into his eyes. Because this stopped feeling like an assignment. Nathaniel said nothing. Emma could have explained everything then. But she saw the 3 letters and understood something painful. He still did not have the entire truth. There is another letter, she said. Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. Where? Inside the old music room, beneath the bench where you keep your mother's sheet music. His expression changed. Only Emma knew how much that room meant to him. Why hide it there? Because nobody enters that room without your permission. Nathaniel stepped away from the table. What does it say? Read it. Tell me now. Emma shook her head. No. You trusted paper more than you trusted me. This time, read all of it. Nathaniel froze. The words landed without cruelty because Emma did not need cruelty to make them true. She turned toward the doors. Emma. She stopped, but did not face him. If what you are saying is true, why did you not come to me? Nathaniel asked. Emma closed her eyes briefly. I was going to. When I knew who inside this castle was helping them. A silence followed. Nathaniel slowly looked around the council table. For the first time, several faces turned away from him. Emma finally glanced back. If I came here to betray you, Nathaniel, ask yourself why I betrayed the only people who could have taken me home. His pale face became completely still. Emma looked once at their rings lying side by side. Read the 4th letter before sunrise. Then she walked through the doors alone, leaving the vampire king surrounded by advisors, unanswered questions, and the terrible possibility that the woman he had just released from their marriage had been protecting him while he was learning how to love her. Nathaniel Blackwood waited until the council chamber emptied before he moved. He left the 3 letters on the table and walked through the silent castle toward the old music room, where moonlight stretched across the floor in pale silver bands. The piano waited exactly as Emma had left it. For several seconds, Nathaniel simply stared at the bench. Then he lifted the wooden seat and reached beneath the stack of his mother's sheet music. An envelope rested there. His name was written across the front in Emma's unmistakable handwriting. Nathaniel opened it carefully. The letter inside was not addressed to him. It was a copy of the final message Emma had sent to the people who recruited her. She told them the information she had provided was useless, that she would no longer cooperate, and that they should never contact her family again. Then Nathaniel reached the final lines. Emma had written that she understood refusing them meant losing the protection they had promised her. She understood she might never be welcomed home. She was choosing to remain anyway. Not for the crown. Not for the agreement. For Nathaniel. His hand became still. Suddenly, every detail he had ignored returned with painful clarity. The outdated gate schedule. The changed meeting date. Emma defending him before the council. Her quiet words on the balcony. Maybe I stopped staying because of the agreement. Nathaniel closed his eyes. He had searched for betrayal so desperately that he had mistaken evidence of loyalty for proof against it. A soft sound came from the doorway. Lord Whitmore stood there. Your Majesty. Nathaniel looked at him. How did you know I was here? Whitmore hesitated. It lasted less than a second, but Nathaniel noticed. I assumed the Queen told you about the letter. She told me where it was. Nathaniel folded the page. She told no one else. Whitmore's face remained composed. Then perhaps I guessed correctly. Nathaniel said nothing. Silence had always been one of his greatest advantages. People rushed to fill it. Whitmore did exactly that. Whatever she wrote, remember that she admitted communicating with them. Yes. Nathaniel stepped away from the piano. And you seem unusually invested in reminding me. Whitmore lowered his eyes. I am protecting the crown. The phrase sounded familiar because Nathaniel had used it himself hours earlier. Now he heard what fear could hide inside those words. Tomorrow morning, Nathaniel said, the council will meet again. Whitmore looked up. Why? Because Emma will present everything. Surely that is unnecessary. Nathaniel's expression became colder. You do not decide what is necessary. Whitmore bowed and left without another word. Nathaniel remained alone, holding Emma's letter. His first instinct was to find her immediately, apologize, and ask her to stay. But another truth stopped him. Emma had spent the evening being judged by people who never allowed her to speak fully. If Nathaniel rushed into her room, now demanding forgiveness because he finally understood, he would only be asking her to carry his guilt too. So he waited. At dawn, Emma stood in her chambers beside a packed suitcase when someone knocked. Come in. Nathaniel entered alone. He looked different without the council surrounding him. Less like a king. More like the man who once laughed because she called an expensive carriage a building with wheels. Emma noticed the fourth letter in his hand. You read it. Every word. She nodded and returned to folding a sweater. Then you understand. I understand that I was wrong. Emma stopped. Nathaniel did not approach. I should have asked you before I judged you. His voice was quiet. I should have trusted the woman standing in front of me more than 3 letters placed conveniently on my desk. Emma looked at him. Yes, you should have. He accepted the answer without defending himself. I am sorry. Her eyes softened, but only slightly. Thank you. Nathaniel looked toward the suitcase. Are you still leaving? I have not decided. Pain crossed his pale face, but he nodded. Then I will not decide for you. Emma studied him. There is something else you need to know. Nathaniel waited. The people who sent me here gave me a way out weeks ago. They offered to take me home if I completed one final task. And you refused. Yes. Why? Emma's eyes held his. At first, you were a king I had been ordered to marry. Then you became a man I respected. She paused. And somewhere along the way, you became my husband by choice. Nathaniel stood speechless. Emma's voice grew softer. That is why what happened last night hurt. He lowered his eyes. I know. No. Now you do. Silence settled between them. Nathaniel looked at the woman he had believed powerless inside his world and finally understood the truth. Emma had possessed the freedom to leave before he ever released her. She had stayed because she chose him. And now, if he wanted her beside him again, a crown would not be enough. This time, Nathaniel Blackwood would have to become someone she could freely choose twice. The second council meeting began just after sunrise. But this time, Emma Carter did not stand at the far end of the chamber waiting to be judged. She walked directly to the long table carrying a leather folder beneath one arm and placed it in front of Nathaniel Blackwood. Her suitcase remained packed upstairs. Nathaniel knew that. He also knew nothing he said this morning could erase what had happened the night before. Lord Whitmore sat 3 chairs away, unusually quiet. These are copies of every message I sent, Emma said. Dates, responses, and the information they requested are all here. One council member opened the folder. Emma continued before anyone could interrupt. When I arrived at Blackwood Castle, I was expected to report what I learned. I did. I will not pretend otherwise. Nathaniel watched several faces harden. Emma did not retreat. But after I understood what they intended to do with that information, I stopped giving them anything useful. She placed the 3 letters from Nathaniel's desk beside her records. The problem is that someone inside this castle knew enough about my correspondence to make harmless information appear current. Whitmore shifted in his chair. Emma noticed. The first letter mentions a council schedule that had already changed. Only a small number of people knew the original schedule. She placed another document on the table. The second refers to an Eastern Gate rotation that was replaced before the letter was delivered. And the third mentions negotiations that had already been moved to another date. Nathaniel looked toward Whitmore, who had access to all 3 original schedules. The council secretary opened a ledger. The answer came quietly. The king, the queen, myself, and Lord Whitmore. Silence settled across the chamber. Whitmore leaned forward. This proves nothing. By itself, no, Emma said. That is why I kept looking. She removed one final envelope. The people contacting me began using phrases they should not have known unless someone here was communicating with them separately. Whitmore's expression tightened. You expect this council to accept your interpretation? No, Emma met his eyes. I expect them to read the correspondence themselves. She passed the envelope to the council secretary instead of Nathaniel. That choice mattered. Emma was not asking her husband to declare her innocent. She was asking the evidence to survive without his protection. The secretary compared the records in silence before looking up. The repeated wording appears in messages associated with Lord Whitmore's office. Every eye turned. Whitmore rose. Your Majesty, I have served this crown for years. Nathaniel remained seated. Then you understand why the evidence must be reviewed without privilege. Whitmore stared at him. You would take her word over mine? Nathaniel's pale face remained calm. This is not about whose word I prefer. That mistake has already been made once. Emma looked at him. He did not look back. He was doing exactly what she needed. Nothing that would turn her truth into a favor granted by a king. The council ordered a formal review of Whitmore's correspondence and temporarily removed him from confidential proceedings until the investigation could be completed. No spectacle followed. No threats. Only the quiet consequences of evidence finally being examined instead of assumed. When the chamber emptied, Emma gathered her papers. Nathaniel remained behind. You cleared your name without me, he said. Emma glanced at him. I needed to. I know. She closed the folder. Yesterday, everyone looked at me like I was waiting for the king to decide whether I deserved dignity. Nathaniel lowered his eyes. Including the king. Emma said nothing. He looked toward the 2 wedding rings still resting where they had been left the night before. I cannot undo that. No, and I cannot ask you to forget it. No, Nathaniel nodded. The acceptance in that gesture surprised her. He walked to the table and picked up both rings. For one brief second, Emma expected him to place hers back on her finger. Instead, he opened his palm. Her ring rested there beside his. These belong to an agreement neither of us chose, he said. I will not use them to restore something I was responsible for breaking. Emma stared at him. Then what happens now? Nathaniel placed his own ring on the table and extended hers toward her. You decide. Emma slowly took it, but she did not put it on. Nathaniel did not ask her to. And if I leave? She whispered. Pain crossed his face. Then the gates will open. And if I stay? Nathaniel looked directly into her eyes. Then I spend however long it takes proving that staying was not a mistake. Emma closed her fingers around the ring. For months, Nathaniel had possessed enough authority to command nearly everyone around him. Yet in the moment that mattered most, he surrendered the only power he should never have possessed, the power to decide for her. Emma walked toward the doors, then stopped. My carriage was supposed to leave at 8. Nathaniel's expression remained controlled. I know. Cancel it. He stared at her. Emma turned slightly, the ring still hidden inside her closed hand. Do not misunderstand me. I have not forgiven you yet. Something almost like hope entered his eyes. Understood. Emma opened the doors. And Nathaniel? Yes. She looked back. Next time you find suspicious letters, try asking your wife. For the first time since the nightmare began, the Vampire King smiled. Emma Carter stayed at Blackwood Castle, but staying was not the same as returning to the marriage they had before. Nathaniel understood that distinction without needing it explained. For the next several weeks, he never asked why she still kept her wedding ring inside the drawer beside her bed instead of wearing it. He never entered the music room expecting her to follow. He simply changed the things that had broken her trust. When questions concerned Emma, he asked Emma. When the council discussed her position, he made certain she was present to speak for herself. When the investigation confirmed that Lord Whitmore had manipulated the correspondence to create suspicion inside the royal household, Nathaniel did not turn the discovery into proof that Emma owed him forgiveness. He gave her the report and said, You deserve the truth. Emma read it quietly. So did you. Nathaniel looked at her. I had the truth standing in front of me. I chose fear instead. That answer stayed with her. Slowly, the castle found its old rhythm again, but this time it felt different because nothing was assumed. Thursday evenings returned. One night Emma entered the music room carrying 2 cups of tea. Nathaniel looked up from the piano. Am I allowed to become optimistic? Absolutely not. I thought we had made progress. We have. Your optimism remains dangerous. His quiet laugh filled the room, and Emma realized how much she had missed it. Weeks later, spring finally reached the castle grounds. Emma was walking through the garden at sunset when she found Nathaniel waiting beneath an old stone arch covered in white flowers. There were no council members, no servants, no ceremony. Only Nathaniel, dressed in a simple dark coat, holding something in his closed hand. Emma stopped. "You look nervous." "Kings are not nervous." "Your face disagrees." "My face has always been unreliable around you." Emma smiled. Nathaniel opened his hand. Her wedding ring rested in his palm. She became still. "I am not giving this back to you," he said. "That is an unusual beginning. Let me finish." Emma waited. Nathaniel looked down at the ring. "The first time you wore this, other people had already decided everything for us. Where we would live, what our marriage represented, what each of us was expected to become." His pale face softened. "I do not want that marriage back." Emma's expression changed. "Neither do I." Nathaniel nodded. "Good." He placed the ring on the stone ledge between them rather than reaching for her hand. "Then I want to ask for something we never had." "What?" "A choice." The garden became quiet around them. "Emma, if you leave tomorrow, I will respect it. If you stay without ever wearing that ring again, I will respect that too." His voice lowered. "But if there is still a future in which you could choose me without an agreement, without a council, and without anyone telling you what you owe this kingdom, then I would like the chance to earn it." Emma looked at the ring. "Nathaniel Blackwood, are you proposing to your own wife?" "Technically, I believe I am proposing to the woman whose marriage I ended." "That is significantly worse." "I prepared this speech poorly." Emma laughed, and Nathaniel smiled. Then his expression became serious. "Will you choose me when you are finally free not to?" Emma felt tears gather in her eyes. 6 months earlier, she had entered Blackwood Castle because duty required it. She had expected a cold ruler and found a lonely man. Nathaniel had expected an obedient political bride and found the one person who would challenge him without fearing him. They had both mistaken obligation for the beginning of their story. It had only been the circumstance that introduced them. Emma picked up the ring. Nathaniel watched without moving. She could have placed it in her pocket. She could have handed it back. Instead, she slipped it onto her finger herself. "Yes," she whispered. Nathaniel closed his eyes for one brief second. When he opened them, Emma held out her hand. "You still have your ring?" He reached into his coat and revealed it. Emma laughed softly. "You carry it around?" "I was attempting optimism." "Dangerous." She took the ring and placed it into his palm. Nathaniel put it on himself. No priest announced them. No council applauded. No political agreement was signed. Two people simply stood beneath the evening sky wearing rings they had finally chosen. Emma stepped closer and rested her head against Nathaniel's shoulder. He gently took her hand. In the windows above them, Blackwood Castle glowed with warm light, no longer looking to Emma like a beautiful prison. "Do you regret marrying me?" Nathaniel asked quietly. Emma remembered the first time he had asked. Back then, her answer had been not today. She smiled. "Ask me tomorrow." Nathaniel looked down at her. "Why tomorrow?" "Because I intend to still be here." And for a king who had spent his life believing power meant never needing anyone, those words meant more than obedience ever could. Their first marriage had been arranged by duty. Their second began with something far stronger: freedom.